This week on Down to Earth, Ethiopia stripped bare. To live off the land, the population has rendered its countryside naked.
30 years ago, there were many trees, but we cut so many we hardly have anything left.
Famine in sub-Saharan Africa is a constant threat. More food, more often, is possible by planting trees.
The first year is always the hardest because there is nothing. There is basically pure rock.
Slowly, the landscape is changing with the help of two men who've opened their hearts and their wallets to turning Ethiopia green.
Look at this, it's a forest. Look, it's a forest, Jack.
This week we're down to earth in Ethiopia, and the time it takes me to plant this tree, dozens of others like it will be cut down across the country. Ethiopia has lost more than 90% of its forests in just 50 years. Growing them back won't be easy, but it's become a matter of survival for the people living on this dry and arid land. Here in the north of Ethiopia, the dry season stretches out relentlessly. But today, as the rain finally approaches, the villagers have come out in force.
Me on this mountain, I've already planted more than 1,000 trees. I'm happy because I see my country turning green.
Without trees, there's no life. Man can't live without plants. Plants are useful for everything.
Kurt Pfister catapulted this army of planters into action. A businessman in earlier years, the Swiss-German now devotes much of his time and personal wealth to reforesting Ethiopia.
Since my youth, I'm aware how important are trees. But I was a businessman and my only thinking was in turnover and rentability and in business. But since I'm here and work in Ethiopia, since now I know how important are trees.
Kurt, with his association Green Ethiopia, has now planted close to 20 million trees in 12 years. The majority of them are growing here in the Tigray region, where food is as scarce as the rain. Today we're close to the border with Eritrea. The face of these hillsides is changing.
Usually the picture looks like this. Bare hills, no trees, no vegetation, nothing. Now, if you look here around, there is no more bare land. There is nature. The grass is growing. It's a huge change. When I see this, I'm not only proud, I'm proud for me, but especially for the farmers who help us to change this.
Kurt has needed financial help to plant trees year after year.
Donc c'était il y a 3 ans, c'est ça?
He found a large portion of it in Jacques Rocher, son of French cosmetic giant Yves Rocher. After 3 years, Jacques has returned to see the results firsthand.
Look at this, it's a forest. Look, it's a forest, Jack.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Let's take this path through the forest.
When we come back here in 5 years' time, there won't be enough space to walk here anymore.
No, c'est fantastic.
Salam.
Jacques' foundation shies away from financial questions, preferring to instead say it's covered the cost of 17 million trees. Plant for the Planet is one of your international programs. How many trees do you intend to plant around the world?
The global objective is 50 million trees, and we want to do it in 7 years. For the average person, it might seem like a huge number. Admittedly, it is a lot, but at the same time, it's not that much when you consider we destroy the equivalent of 3 times the surface of Paris every day. That's the equivalent of 300,000 square kilometers, and that's what I'm going to do in 7 years. I'm going to give 7 years of my life to planting these trees when, on the other side, the society in which we live destroys trees at the speed of light.
All of the trees planted on the mountains were first nurtured in nurseries like this. A seed on its own in the rocky terrain would be lucky to survive more than a few weeks. Here the seedlings are watched over, protected by women like 34-year-old Sahanesh. Sahanesh, what is it that you do here in the nursery?
First, we prepare the soil, we plant the seeds, we water them and we put the straw on top to protect the plants against the sun. When the plants are big enough, we plant them on the mountain and turn the landscape green. And that's what we consider our wealth.
We don't have to go far to meet someone who's benefited directly from the nursery. Across the road, we meet a neighbour who's been able to cultivate his once barren field since planting trees, which now provide shade, act as a windbreaker and nourish the soil. Today's crops include papaya, tomatoes and onion.
Before, the land was dry. There was nothing, no trees nor plants. It was just dust. And I transformed this land.
Tigray has long recovered from the famine that devastated the region in the 1980s. But the threat of hunger is never far away. The community lives off this dry land prone to drought. Crops often fail. This is one of Green Ethiopia's newest sites. Today, Simon, the son of founder Kurt, has come to meet with locals who have partnered in the project. They now understand the long-term effects of cutting trees.
30 years ago, there were many trees, but we've cut so many we hardly have anything left. Now when the heavy rains fall here, in areas where there are no trees, it doesn't stay in the soil. It goes directly down into the valley.
As the water rushes into the valley, it takes with it precious soil, rendering even more of this mountainous land infertile. But trees act as a sieve, allowing water to drip slowly into the soil where it stays, keeping the ground moist for longer. Eventually, with forests, this dried-out river could run the year round.
Now it's dried out. During the dry season, it's all dried out. So what our approach is, what our idea is, if we have forests along the hillsides, there is actually much less water coming down. There is less runoff. That means that we can start building small dams in here, and with those dams we can collect soil and we can have 90% of this area we can cover with vegetables. And vegetable, that means additional food for the people, means vitamins, and that will contribute to their health, to maybe learning capacity of children, because most of them today are hungry.
It's the beginning of a long battle to reforest Ethiopia, a goal that is difficult but not impossible to achieve. A large part of the problem is the country has found itself in a vicious cycle. Wood means survival for most of its 85 million people, used as fuel and as material for construction. Trees are also cleared to make space for agriculture. Today, Ethiopia is losing 1,500 square kilometres of forest per year. And of the 3% that rests, most of it is the non-native eucalyptus. This is what we find alongside the road just outside the capital. Not long ago, this was a eucalyptus forest. Today, it's these freshly cut stumps and hundreds, even thousands of logs. The locals love this tree because it's fast-growing and a quick source of income. But in the long term, this imported species is ravaging their land. The eucalyptus tree was introduced from Australia more than a century ago. Today, they can be found everywhere in Ethiopia. While the eucalyptus is thriving, at the same time it's destroying the surrounding soil. We meet Professor Nagash, who tells us the situation is desperate. So much of the forest here in Ethiopia is made up of these eucalyptus trees, and for you, these trees are dangerous?
Yes, they are. I would say they are scary. I'm scared as a biologist because eucalyptus trees are very aggressive. They produce toxins called allelochemicals, which kill all other forms of plants. So they are scary. They also take up all of the water. They suck up groundwater, and as you can see, The land here is bare beneath. So I have characterized, I hope it is a fair characterization, eucalyptus stand as green on top and Sahara beneath.
Today there's still no regulation over the amount of eucalyptus planted or where. At the same time, efforts to breed native species which halt rather than hasten erosion are on the rise. At the University of Addis Ababa, Professor Nagash and his students study which plants are best to breed.
So this is one of the native trees which we propagate, and it is Alophilus abyssinicus, named after ancient Ethiopia, Abyssinia. You have to have multiples of trees, multiples of different species. This is biodiversity. From amongst plants, we need different plants. This is biodiversity, not a single tree.
While Professor Nagash has a message to preach, he has another powerful force on his side, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Back in Tigray in the north, 95% of the population are devout followers. This ceremony, held every morning, attracts thousands of people who start their day with prayer. The priests use their sermons to convince the congregation to respect their native trees, for native trees are sacred.
If I plant a tree, that's showing direction to enter to paradise. That's also belief for the people. Tree is life. Tree is life.
Now, in the name of religion, more Ethiopians are turning their back on deforestation and treating their land as a sanctuary for life-giving trees.